And I'd be happy to respond to your questions, but one final point about the whistleblower. We still don't have the complaint. Now that we have the Department of Justice opinion, I think it telling that they have released that and yet not released the Inspector General's legal analysis that takes issue with it. This is, again, Bill Barr's Justice Department trying to put out a misleading spin, in this case in the form of the department's opinion. But nevertheless, that complaint needs to be provided to our committee. It needs to be provided in its entirety. That whistleblower needs to be given instructions about how to come to our committee, and that whistleblower needs to be given the complete freedom to report any allegations of wrongdoing that have come to that whistleblower's attention. We will not brook any kind of interference given how pervasive this cover-up apparently is. Now I'll be happy to answer your questions. Yes.
Can you, the White House says that this call summary proves that there was no quid pro quo because the withheld military aid never even came up in the conversation. What's your response to that?
My response is the President of Ukraine brought up his country's need for military assistance, and immediately thereafter the President of the United States said, I have a favor I want to ask of you, and would not let the subject go. There was only one message that that President of Ukraine got from that call, and that was, this is what I need. I know what you need. Like any mafia boss, the President didn't need to say, that's a nice country you have. It'd be a shame if something happened to it, because that was clear from the conversation. There is no quid pro quo necessary to betray your country or your oath of office, even though many read this as a quid pro quo. I'm not concerned whether it is a quid pro quo or not. Ukraine understood what this president wanted. He made it abundantly clear. He made it redundantly clear. He had his emissaries making it clear. And Ukraine knew what it needed to do if it wanted to get military assistance, and that is help the President of the United States violate his oath of office.
So what specifically do you see as the impeachable offense here?
Well, I think in its most naked form, and this is what our inquiry is going to look into, the President has now admitted the notes of this call, and we don't even know if these are the complete notes of that call, indicate the President of the United States shaking down a foreign leader, essentially undermining the national security of this country for a personal political gain, and one that violates his oath of office. So it is very powerful evidence of that kind of potential impeachable offense. But we want to get the full facts before the American people, and we also want to make sure we take corrective action. And I want to thank the whistleblower. We still don't know whether this is the subject of the whistleblower's complaint, but I think this single courageous individual may have had the effect of forcing the White House to provide Ukraine with this funding, knowing that these matters were going to come to light. But this whistleblower has already had a tremendous impact in exposing wrongdoing of the President of the United States and helping protect our national security in a way that his or her boss was unwilling to do. And by that, I mean the director as well as the President of the United States.
Are you expecting a complaint by tomorrow?
Welcome to the Gilchrist experience. I know most of you probably didn't sit through this confusing circus. Really, we've got a man that's a liar and a cheat and a con and everything else we can call him, yet people still support his effort to be reelected, much less the mistakes of him being elected in the first place. But because he promised to do certain things for certain people, and he's done none of those things, and yet through all this, he's conned his way through 3 years.
Not quite 3.
Not almost. Quite 3 years, but he'll get there. I'm afraid he'll live out the 4, because there's no way to impeach him, because we know McConnell is not going to bring it up in the Senate. And if you don't have the Senate, you don't have a trial, and you don't have a removal of the president. You don't have a full impeachment. I watched Fox 5 this morning, and my sympathy goes out to all the white supremacists out there who actually believe in this man. I mean, this is a mockery of democracy. It truly is. To really watch this man get away with the shenanigans, and it's nothing but buffoonery. We that know him here in New York, it's a goof. And he continually gets away with nonsense. And yet our system is so flawed or controlled by white supremacy. I'll name it what it is. The people who are feeling comfortable with this are people in power and mostly white supremacists, or just white people that are just going along in their daily lives, watching Fox News and any other things, believing in Trump. God bless them, but they're dead wrong, and hopefully we can shed some light on this this ill. Enough for Trump, but welcome to the show, Dominique.
Thank
You're
you.
shining bright relief to all this madness we see out here.
Thank you.
I saw you on Reverend Sharpton's last week.
Politics Nation?
Politics Nation.
Yes.
And it was wonderful. Do you have any reference to what's going on with this man out here? Let's hear from the youth. What do you think about what's happening with Donald Trump?
It's basically the same shenanigans that's going on. It's lying, it's cheating, it's just basically not a democracy within the United States. And it's kind of sad because my little brother's growing up in this world and have to, you know, he just turned 9, but that's, he has to say, you know, one of my presidents was Donald Trump, and God forbid he does a lot of laws that can change, will affect me, will affect my little brother, will affect like families or anybody who it's against.
That's right. When he was born, we had a black president. Oh,
Yes.
Hey,
But you would never know it.
No.
He's tried to erase everything that a good guy did. He's the good guy.
But the people that didn't like Obama now wishes he was back now. So yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I see some light at the end of the tunnel. I think something's got to break on this. What do you think, Graham? Welcome home.
hey, good to be back. Couple of things you got to look at here. Mitch McConnell, whom you haven't heard from
That's
in
right.
weeks,
That's right.
and you got to follow the money.
Okay.
Mitch McConnell,
Oh, it's him and his wife.
well, not just he and his wife, but there was a deal struck between a Russian oligarch
Right.
and Mitch McConnell to bring an aluminum manufacturing plant into Kentucky, into his district,
Okay.
into the state of Kentucky.
200 million? Is that the
I don't
total?
remember what it was, but it's going to provide jobs for the people.
Okay.
This Russian oligarch has been under investigation off and on for a number of years. So there's a tie between Trump, McConnell, and the oligarch. And you got to follow the money in every case. You may wonder why these guys are not speaking, because money is involved.
Okay.
That's why the Republicans are not speaking. Today, the acting director of national intelligence said he will not be silenced by the White House.
Okay.
He said that. He intends to come in tomorrow and give a full statement regarding everything relative to this whistleblower and the notes on the conversation. So he's already notified Trump, I'm not like the others. This guy has a career, has had a career in intelligence before he jumped into that seat.
Okay.
And he's not going to sacrifice it for Trump. So he said tomorrow morning he will meet with the House Intelligence Committee and give them all the information he has relative to this. I know they were, Trump was releasing a synopsis of the conversation.
Yeah.
They're not looking for a synopsis. They want the actual notes,
The transcript. Yeah.
the transcript, thank you, of the conversation. And everything that goes on in the White House is recorded for the National Archives.
It used to be.
Supposed to be, right. So Trump, and you saw Giuliani on there, earlier today, talking like a maniac. He stated that the State Department called him and asked him to do certain things relative to this matter. The State Department is not going to call a private citizen, who also is the attorney of the president or of this president, to engage in any official act, and he's not employed by the federal government.
He's Trump's private attorney.
Private attorney. Not a good one. Not a great one. I don't even understand how we got into the Justice Department when his father was in the mafia and his brother was gunned down by the FBI in Brooklyn, not far from the house. I don't know how you get clearance when your family is
That's
mob
right.
connected.
That's right. Well, Trump had something to do with that.
No, he didn't.
You don't
That
think?
was long ago. No.
No, I'm saying getting him clearance.
Oh, no. That was like 30 years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I thought you meant clearance now.
Oh, no, he doesn't.
He doesn't need
Does he
it.
He
have
doesn't need
clearance?
clearance. He's not working in the White House. He's working
Okay.
for the president. But when he was
Well,
in
wouldn't
the
you
U.S.
need clearance
Attorney's
to go
office.
to Ukraine or something? Wouldn't you need
No, he's a
some
private
sort?
citizen. Take your
No.
passport, get
Yeah.
on the plane.
So the State Department didn't send him there, right?
Of course not.
No, it was a lie.
Oh, what'd you say?
I watched Fox News this morning, and they are so confusing.
That's why.
I mean, they're so confusing. They're so cleverly confusing, man. I mean, if I didn't know any better, I mean,
You'd be rooting for Trump.
it was amazing. I sat there, I said, oh my goodness, that's such a lie. But he said it so well. I said, oh my goodness, what are these people getting? What are they being exposed to? That's a shame. I mean, this is serious.
What people? You
I mean,
talking about the
people
ones-
watching Fox
the people
News.
watching, exactly.
And this is nothing going back to the beginnings of Fox News with the loudest voice. And what was his name? Beverly? The loudest voice is Ailes.
Oh, yeah.
And you watch the loudest voice and you see the beginnings of Fox News. And it's really amazing. I recommend everybody watch that whole series.
And you got to
one-
remember Rupert Murdoch.
Yeah, well, he was behind the whole thing.
Right. He's a Canadian who was
Okay,
given
he's
the clearance.
Australian.
Australian?
Australian.
All right, thank you. He was given the go-ahead to expand his media operations, although he was not an American
Right.
citizen.
That was in the 80s.
And that
though.
was done by Colin Powell's son, who was the secretary of the FCC
way back.
when Bush, I'm not sure if it was Bush 1 or 2, but Colin
Had
Powell's
to be
son
one.
gave him the go-ahead to expand his media operations. And see, this is not, all this insanity is not just starting now with Trump. It's been creeping up on us very quietly over the years. So, and somebody mentioned something that Rupert Murdoch is involved in most recently as of yesterday. And it's another manipulation.
Fox News.
No, it's not Fox, it's something else. And I got to go back
Another one?
and find it. But there are people in the background who are the puppet masters,
Right.
who are directing, manipulating, and controlling. And once again, we're going to have to follow the money. And we know that with regard to this incident concerning Trump talking to the Ukrainian Prime Minister.
You know they had an interview right after
Yes,
this afternoon.
yes, and there were little jovial, jocular things.
You watched
but
that too?
you got to remember, his people are in dire need. So there's the sword of Damocles is hanging over his head, and he's got to be careful what he says and how he says it
Of course.
until a point that the Congress has established certain things and blown the case open
Well, you-
because his people, he desperately needs the money that Trump is withholding from him.
In order to fight the Russians.
Right.
Well, we have to have an understanding of the current government of the Ukraine.
Which is
The
he's the new.
prior government was overthrown. And by whom? At the instigation of whom? And they, according to the reports, not what you'll see on CNN and MSNBC, but it was instigated by the government that we are not a part of, that governs America.
Trump had something to do with the.
Yeah, it relates to NATO, and NATO, there was a deal struck back when, can't tell you who the leaders of the Russian, well, it was Putin. NATO was not supposed to encroach on any of the nations surrounding Russia, but they did make the move on the Ukraine, according to
No, the Ukraine was part of the NATO.
Soviet Union.
Soviet Union.
No, but they became part of NATO when they gave up their missiles. They had
The government of the Ukraine was
Ukraine's
overthrown.
had missiles, had atomic missiles. They
Right.
gave up their missiles if they agreed to join NATO.
Well,
They're part of NATO.
the point is, the story goes deeper than this guy here. This guy who's the president,
Who just became president.
who just became president.
Okay.
It goes back to when the other man was overthrown.
Zelensky?
Okay? However,
Your mic.
the,
Your mic is low.
Is it on?
on or off.
You have to adjust the mic.
Go put on Rosewood. Run Rosewood.
So we'll be right back.
Right, black.
Right, black.
And with that, we're going to go to, I always give you a little black history. And last week we ran Greenwood. And we also talked about Rosewood. So just a little technical difficulties, and we'll come right back at you after we watch Rosewood, Florida. All right? Be right back at you.
On January 5th, 1923, a white vigilante mob in Florida ended a two-day rampage. It resulted in the predominantly black town of Rosewood being burned to the ground. It was triggered a few days earlier in the neighboring community of Sumner, Florida, when a 16-year-old married white woman, Fannie Taylor, claimed that a black man, Jesse Hunter, had assaulted her. Several groups of white men assembled to capture Hunter, believing that he had fled and was hiding in Rosewood with the help of the black community. At least one black man who was believed to have information about the assault was lynched. The dead man's body was strung up and displayed as a warning to the black community. Over the next few days, as news of the alleged assault spread, several hundred angry white men descended upon Rosewood. A gunfight between whites and blacks ensued, and many homes and other buildings were burned. When it was over, an estimated 30 black men, women, and children had been killed. Other black residents escaped into the nearby woods, then fled by train to Gainesville, never to return. Years later, survivors of the rampage recounted that Fannie Taylor had made false accusations against Jesse Hunter to cover up her extramarital affair with a white man.
As you saw last week, we ran Greenwood, which was Black Wall Street. I'm sorry we don't have that tape for you. But we're just going back to the past where we've been independent and had our own success in life. And through jealousy and through some racist idea, the town was completely burned down. This was Greenwood. But here's another incident which we mentioned last week about Rosewood, which we just saw. Was an accusation of a black man
assaulting a white woman.
supposedly, and she, and we go back to Central Park 5 and all the rest of the stuff.
Exonerated 5.
Exonerated 5. So tell me how this is in press. You've never heard of Rosewood, have you?
No, I haven't.
That's a new one for you, huh?
It is. But it's definitely not a story that I haven't heard before, like Emmett Till and all of the other stories that my grandma tells me or that I read about on my own. And it's surprisingly not shocking. It's supposed to be shocking. It's supposed to be abnormal, where it's like, how could anybody do this? But I'm so used to hearing stories like this where it's like, oh, another one that I just learned about. How awful, you know? And
Yeah.
it's definitely a problem, but you'll see the same thing going on today where it's black men being accused of raping white women. You see it a lot in college. So that issue has never went away. It just become more normalized, you know, which is a problem that we definitely need to fix. But
How do you see our future?
as black people,
Yeah, as black people.
I see two futures. I see a future where we all can come together financially, mentally, spiritually, and actually, you know, win and really do good and eat healthy and live right and have that property that we wanted, you know, in a prosperous life. But I also see the future that we are now, where it's only some of us only know that we're in mental, you know, chains. It's only some of us that actually wants to overcome the justice system. It's only some of us that know what's going on, when the other half of us, it's saying, well, this is just what it is, you know, this is our normal, or just being separated, you know, a separation within a group that's separated within that group. So there's two futures that I see.
Well, we're part of National Action Network, so we're exposed to much more than other people. So I advise people to come join the National Action Network. Here's a classic example of a youth that was raised
Yes.
raised in the movement. The last 6 years, was it?
No,
6?
all my life, my grandma used to bring my mom to Nan.
That's right. That's right.
So me,
That's right.
yeah,
So
You mentioned we're separated.
yes. It's you want me to explain it? So
Yeah,
the separation is
please.
where it's like a divide, where it's a technology divide, right? There is a age divide, right? When even in the movement, you have older people that's in the movement saying this is how it should be, this way and this way. And now, you know, 2019, 2018, where we really seen it when Bernie Sanders ran, there was really a respect more for youth and their voice. And you see but it's still the same thing with the youth. They feel like, you know, older people don't know anything, but you have to respect the craft, because that's the only reason why we're here now, you know? So, but it takes two people to come together and say, I have this, I have the eggs, okay, I have the bread, let's make a sandwich, you know?
Right.
You have to have a little bit of everything to come to the table with something. But there's a gap within religion too. You have young people that say they don't believe in God for either they wasn't exposed or it was forced upon them, you know? So you definitely have a gap
you
within
have a lot
everything.
of youth who don't believe in God.
Oh, yeah. We talk about it in my literature class. But I respect them as a person. I know me, I grew up in church, you know, so
All right.
I'm a Baptist.
Well, you got a lot of adults don't believe in God, so. you know.
Absolutely, because they wasn't exposed to it or they don't have enough faith. It's a lot of factors that go in it, you know, but
So how do you approach it? The youth that you run into?
I definitely, I like to hear them out. I don't like to force my opinions on them. I like to have a conversation because I know how it feels for my voice not to be respected in school or in anything, and someone not to have a conversation with me, but more of, you know. So I like to ask them questions, but why do you feel this way? And I bring my understanding of, I can understand how you feel this way, but if you look at it this way, or if I went through that situation of feeling like, you know, man, black people are, for example, black people are not gonna stop killing each other, right? I could totally understand that, but because I have faith and because I have hope, and I see a lot of situations where we come together as a NAN, I see how black people can be united, and it's the same with NAACP and all of those other organizations. You see that.
But
and
you
say,
see it in the youth huddle.
Yeah,
You know, look
of
what
course you
happens
see it
there.
in the youth huddle, but you have to come to the youth huddle. You have to be exposed to that type of rich blackness to understand it. You can't, like, for example, live in NYCHA and see the same people living on the corner every day, and I wouldn't expect you to say, you know what, we are powerful. We came from kings and queens if you don't know your history,
Yeah,
you know?
there you go.
So, and you definitely have to be exposed to different situations in order to have that understanding. I wouldn't have the understanding that I have now if I wasn't exposed to so many things, if I didn't travel as much, if I didn't read as much, if I didn't hear as many stories from my grandma or my mom, or the stories that I hear that are from my mentors, you know.
Well, your grandmother's
You
a
have
tree.
covered it well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had to get an understanding of what you meant by divide. You know, and you did mention the ages. They talked about the generation gap years ago, you know. But the young can learn from the old, and the old can learn from the young. And that's what family is. You know, the black family years ago, we had the extended family. You had the kids, the parents, and the grandparents all under one roof.
Yes.
And we've strayed away from that and gotten to the point where families don't even sit down and eat at the table together because they're distracted. We didn't have the distractions growing up. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have, you might have black and white television. You didn't have color TV. You didn't have stereo, all these other distractions. So the family maintaining that unit was a lot easier. But people have to, well, you've got to be taught. And you
Yes.
talked about exposure, which is very important. Our young people, if exposed to the proper things, can do anything.
Correct.
Just like any other group
All
of
humans.
children
Correct.
out
All
there.
humans.
It's all about being given access to information, technology, the travel.
Yes.
Americans don't travel as widely as other people. And when they travel, they may primarily go to the Caribbean and come back. That's not traveling. You need to go to other continents, see other cultures of people, and see. You went to the Million Man March, right?
Yes,
Right.
yes.
That was the greatest gathering of black people in probably maybe 80, 90 years. And there was no crime. There was
What year
no
was that?
99?
95.
95. Oh, that early. There was no crime in Washington. You had well over 1 million men. I walked from the steps behind Minister Farrakhan down Reflection Pool and on Capitol Street north and south. And there were people in trees. There were people everywhere, but there was no crime. When I traveled in parts of Africa, there's no crime. There are no white people. They're all black people, and there is no crime. When I was in the United Arab Emirates a few months ago, they told ladies, you can go anywhere in this country you want at any time of the day or night, and nobody is going to bother you. There is no crime in the United Arab Emirates. So when you get around and see how other people are living, then you can compare and say, they don't have the problems we have here.
Right.
You know, and you can appreciate.
the whole thing is, we have to understand. I mean, we as black people have to understand white supremacy. We have to understand Donald Trump. We have to understand our history and how it's all planned genocide. All right? The earliest, we needn't go back any further, not to slavery. You just go back to 1980 when Ronald Reagan became president, and the crack epidemic, and how we didn't have that. That's when the separation of families really came. I think that's the cutoff point to civility in the black community. Because before that, I think we were relatively successful, and family dinners, we didn't have the technology back then. We sat back and read, and black people got along quite well. I mean, I know it well because I turned 40 in 1981.
1902.
So my youth and all the rest of the stuff back in the day, even during the 60s when we had Love Child and all this other stuff. People were loving, feeling people. But the crack epidemic brought a demonic force to our community that we'd never seen before. And it just stripped all the spirituality out of, I think, we as a people. Because we turned on each other as such that everything changed. And it all started with the gangs out in California, the Bloods and the Crips.
Started with the CIA bringing
The
in
CIA.
the crack.
Of course,
But
the
before
planned
that-
genocide.
They
Yes.
brought in the
The
heroin.
planned genocide.
Yeah.
They brought in, the first wave was the heroin. When Malcolm and Martin were here,
But we
there
got
were
through
tapes. There were tapes of Nixon and Haldeman that they've released, talking about how they pushed drugs into the black community, and they said it on the tape. Yeah, we did that. We dumped the heroin in the black community, and after heroin, then the next wave was the crack and the AIDS epidemic.
that. Well, that's
which-
invented too.
Which, right, out of Fort Detrick, Maryland, U.S. Biological and Germ Warfare Labs. I knew about AIDS over 40 years ago, before it had a name. And they launched it across Africa using the United Nations World Health Organization. It was supposed to be a smallpox vaccination for the people in the central region of Africa. And that's the heartland of Africa where the greatest mineral wealth is to be found. So by
Congo.
depopulating that region of the world, it allowed the Europeans and the Americans to come in to seize and take and steal what they can, which led us right into the Congo with Yolenge and the mineral wealth of the Congo. And it's the same thing in Zimbabwe now. So we've been hit with one wave after another. And
But
the question is, what's the next one going to be?
But what I'm saying is, with the crack
Vaccines.
epidemic,
Oh,
I'm talking
mandatory.
about how we get along with each other. See, throughout our history, we've gotten along, and that's why we survived the 400 years of the Holocaust, the Black Holocaust. But in the 80s, families started turning on each other in the worst fashion than ever before. The drugs are always there, but you could keep that to the side because they laid around and nodded. With
Right.
crack, you were stealing from your mama,
Killing your mama.
and killing your mama for crack. I mean, crack was really
And
bad.
selling your babies.
And all kind of stuff. I mean, it destroyed Harlem. Harlem in the 80s, you wouldn't believe what it looked like. Unbelievable. We talk all this to see, there was a time when black people were the most loving. I mean, we're spiritual people. We talk about this all the time. Reverend Sharpton always talks about how his mother took care of him, and we all had mothers like that. Every time Reverend Sharpton talks about his mother, I mean, he's talking about my relationship with my mother. I mean, that was so natural. We all had mothers like that, but they were our foundation, of course, like your grandmother. There's an example of a loving human. Oh, she's so sweet, it's ridiculous, right? You get to blush sometime.
Yeah.
You see that?
I love
that
my
loving
grandma, my
spirit.
mom.
You love that loving spirit. That's black people. That's their nature. It's in their nature to be like that. Because that's the only way we survived all this garbage that we're going through. And then you see the youth today with the music, the demonic greed that's stepped in, and you're under a different cloak now. You're under a different stress. Because the youth of today don't believe in God, believe in greed and selfishness and all the other things, because the devil's gotten hold of them. All right?
Well, Dominique touched on that separation, and Graham keying in on that reminds us of what you're talking about, community. And the belief in God is critical for black people because that's
right.
our foundation.
That's right.
Belief in God, a supreme being.
That's right.
Now, the enemy has come in and co-opted the image and the reality of God to be them.
That's right.
But the fact is that when we lose any notion of a belief in God, I'm talking about our young people,
Right,
because the substitute is materialism.
right.
That's where the devaluation, the added devaluation of black people. We've been devalued within the system.
Right.
But then when you have the material aspect come up and continually being bombarded by this
Right.
material thing in our, the what is called rap music has been co-opted.
Right.
And Bob Lore can give a good assessment of that.
Yeah.
I'm not that person, I'm just aware of a lot of things, but it's been co-opted, the lyrics. You can go on the internet and there's a website where you can see the lyrics. So we hear the beat, and the beat is quite often on.
Yeah.
But you listen to the lyrics, you say,
Yeah.
wow. But the family, as you pointed out, Sharpton talking about his mother. I've run into guys who they have negative on their mother, okay, or
They hate
negative on
people.
their father because of that crack.
That's right.
The ripple effect
Right.
has been huge, and it lasts till today. The age, see, she has a grandmother. Other people don't have a grandmother who's sound of mind or not inundated with a house full of children. And the fact is, the grandmother has a vision. She knows what her granddaughter and her grandson don't know. So she's striving to give them the benefit of what she knows. And the young people in your family, you and your brother, are taking it in. My point is that if we don't have an appreciation for age and what age represents, you see, because you're not getting it over TV that tough. There used to be that TV series, Father Knows Best.
Father knows the best.
You know, and it was promoting their family.
Yeah.
All right, but how to reverse it is because you're always asking for solutions.
Yeah.
And I think the first way to reverse it, begin to reverse it, is demonstrate it ourselves within our families.
I agree.
Be a symbol
Amen.
that others can
That's
look
right.
to. And, you know, how do you do that? Well, that gives you a launch pad to say, well, I did it because my grandmother, my mother, my father guided me in this. How do you know how to cook? How do you know how to make some biscuits, cornbread? Because my grandmama showed me. All right, our people don't know how to eat.
Grandma's hand.
Grandma's hands. So I just wanted to throw that in.
I'm gonna brag about my Nan family here. Diamond E.
No, definitely. You know, my mom and my grandma have definitely been that best friend, that sister,
That's
that
it.
father, the
That's
mother,
right.
the grandmother.
Y'all
They've
stand up and cheer now. Come on.
no, they're definitely.
man.
We're gonna bring them on.
You know, and I'm fortunate. A lot of my friends, they don't have that. Even like not having a father, like me, my father's not in my life, but I still, you know, I get that from my mom and I get that from my grandmother. So it's a lot of times where my friends that don't have that father figure, but don't have that strong mother figure either, like how my parents have, and say, you know, how do I go about this? And then how do I go about this? And then it's where I take my mom's advice that they feel like I don't listen to, or my grandma's advice, I definitely listen to it. I listen to both of their advice,
Well, you
and I
better.
definitely give it out.
What happens when you
I don't have
don't?
no option. No. It backfired. But definitely, I make sure I carry that with me. I carry that story with me. That's why I always have stories, as you see. But most definitely, I make sure I spread it because I know
Well, what's the most
everybody has
difficult
it.
time when you didn't listen to reason?
What's the
you-
most difficult
I
time?
mean, when you didn't listen to reason, when you didn't listen, you listened to yourself rather than the people that were saying to you. What's the most? Oh, that's a tough one, huh?
I mean,
No?
I'm a regular
Okay.
person. I get
Growing
sometimes
up.
where I'm like, okay, I'm stubborn, I don't want to do it. And I'm like, okay. And then,
But then
you know,
it-
when it comes back and
You were wrong.
They're like, yeah. I'm like, and it's not like, it's still a not, I told you so, it's okay, so what are you gonna do different, you know?
Okay.
And you don't
All
have
right.
to have that verbal conversation all the time. You don't have that, it's within actions, you know?
So what advice do you give to parents that are struggling with that, you know, like my great-granddaughter, well, I'm only Papa, but, you know.
Advice
You know,
for
when they-
youth, I mean,
The youth that don't know God.
definitely, I think parents have to be, I guess, okay to be approached, you know, have those conversations. Now I always say, I don't believe in God. What? Get out my house. It's not, you shouldn't have that. It should be, why don't you? You know, what trials have you went through? How has your faith been tested on why? And you know, and sometimes it could be the church, you know, everyone has their own church that they connect to. Sometimes it could be a change in religion. Everyone, it's always a God in every religion. It's always a God.
Yeah.
You know, maybe you might be a Muslim, you know, you don't know. So I guess being open
Sitting
to
right next to you.
options, you know, and being, you know, just being open and making sure that you have that conversation and not just bashing the kid, but trying to understand them. But then for the youth, it takes two, just understanding where, you know, your parents have came from. Because I remember I was at a time where I would question religion, not saying I wasn't religious, but saying, okay, if God is so powerful, why this? And my grandma should be, because that's what she knows, you know, and you don't question certain things. So different times, you know, my era, we're always questioning something. Even if we believe in it, we're questioning it because we want to know. Back then, my grandmother, if my mom, you don't question it, you just do, you know? So I guess just being open to have that conversation with anything. It doesn't have to be religion.
I struggled with God when I was 22 and my mother died.
But, you know, death is a big part of life, and we
Of
don't
course.
talk about it.
No.
I took care of my mother for the last 3 years of her life. I was with her when she died. And God told me, he said, listen, your mother is healed. Nobody, are you in good health?
Yeah, I'm in good health.
No, you're not,
Oh, okay.
because you're in the process of dying.
That's depressing.
Nobody is in,
Right.
nobody is in
You
You heard
good
my
health.
mom?
We're all in the process of dying. So you don't escape the vicissitudes of life. You're going to the end of a period. We come from eternity into time, and we go from time back into eternity.
So when will you say good health is? When you die?
You might have, well, you don't have perfect health.
You have okay
you got
health?
okay health.
Oh, okay.
You know, even when you've got nothing wrong, you got okay health, because our bodies are in the process of breaking down and ultimately giving out.
Well,
Totally.
you know,
Yeah.
you can kill yourself with depression.
Yeah.
That's true.
And I've shut my own self down. As much as I talk about positive thought, I've gotten so depressed, I shut my body down and I passed out right in front of my family.
Right. See, but
I've given up.
the thinking of the
And
individual,
I'm always talking about how everything's mental.
it carries you. Right.
And if you mentally put yourself in a state of depression, you will go on the other route, pass on. Because this is nothing but this spiritual experience of the human, a human experience of the spirit. Spirit goes on. You choose which way you want to go. If you want to live a lively life, you think positive and think everything past all the depression.
The man that jumped in front of the train with his daughter,
Oh,
he was
wow,
depressed.
yes.
But depression in America cannot be taken, in my opinion, solely as a mental situation, because if these individuals are on so-called medications that lead to suicide and aggression,
Yeah.
those things we have to be very careful of when we have someone in our family who is diagnosed as depressed, and keeping them away from medications that have the side of, I interviewed this doctor, he said it's not a side effect, it is an
It
effect.
prompts it.
And it's a collateral effect of inducing aggression and suicide. But I want to comment on Dominique and critical thinking and critical analysis. She just did that at the table. She asked Graham, well, when are you in good health? See, others of us would let that question be in our head, but not ask it. Okay? But she asked it. And that is a demonstration not of Dominique, but the mindset of asking questions coming from National Action Network, being in that leadership environment, asking questions, not letting things go by, going, and you'll automatically get it around Sharpton because anything that's brought up, if you watch him, if people bring something up, he'll come back, bam.
I always tell students, don't believe everything, don't believe anything you hear, because you have to challenge. Because a person has a degree and has letters and dots behind their name, that doesn't mean they even know or care about you. You need to know the intention of the person presenting the information with regard to you. College is not about you getting a higher education. College is about you helping to perpetuate the system as it is. It's a class-structured system. What I tell students is, whatever profession you choose, every profession has a negative impact upon black people. Every profession. Whether you're a drug dealer, a preacher, an attorney, a lawyer, everyone has a negative impact, not just upon black people, but upon people. What I want to know is, what are you going to do to lessen that negative impact? You're not getting a degree to go buy a house and a car and a flat screen TV and all this. No, what are you going to do to lessen the negative impact of what is happening to the poor, the underserved, the indigent? And you look at the Bahamas, man, and the attitude of this guy towards the Bahamian people, talking about gangsters and drug dealers and all this stuff. The people of the Bahamas are more civilized than the people of the United States. And I've been in both places.
See, that's exactly the point of playing the first part. See, we know there's a spiritual person in all humans, really. But we survive as black people because we have to develop that spirituality in us because we are the chosen ones. I think we're here to save the planet. So I consider that my role, you know. I don't know what foolishness gave me Gilchrist as a name, but I actually believe that we can actually save this.
You're 100% right.
Save this stuff. And I see this man as nothing but a test to our spirituality, just like crack was. Crack really took us for a loop. Until we understand what happened to us, we can't get out of this quagmire. And this man is just throwing the grease extra heavy. I mean, well, I was in paradise with Obama, and I was just resentful of all you guys that didn't think he was black enough. All right?
I never said that. And don't open your mouth. Don't open your mouth, because I never said it. Sharpton said that. That's the one who said it.
I ain't picking a fight.
No, let's get it straight. Sharpton said it because he was running with that woman, Hillary Clinton. He said Obama. He said it out of his own mouth. He said Obama wasn't black enough. And Charlie Rangel said the same thing.
And Hillary hating got us what? Donald Trump. That's exactly my point.
Klansmen are Klansmen are Klansmen.
The point is that we're stuck.
And she was running with the Klan.
You gotta pick the
That's
best
a
of both
historical
evils.
fact. Her mentor was a Klansman, a Grand Kleagle of the Ku Klux Klan.
I'm trying to clean it up, saying all that stuff is what got us Trump. Okay?
May I introduce
This is what this country has
What got us Trump
always
is
been.
us, really.
I wanna
Us
introduce-
He ain't
We're
nothing
going to try and
new. It's
change
what
it.
this
We're
country
gonna
has
change it.
always been.
We're going to change it right here. We're going to change it right here.
Introduce this
You gotta
real
do it
quick.
more than right here.
There's an investigative reporter. His name is Greg Palast, P-A-L-A-S-T. He's produced a documentary video that can be downloaded for free. It's The Best Democracy Money Can Buy.
Yeah.
He points out that the election that led to Trump being president and the resulting involvement, mental and physical involvement of our Negro leadership in Congress on the Russians is minimal compared to how they stole the election. The Republicans stole the election through voter suppression,
Right.
Right.
voter elimination, and dirty tricks.
Right.
He talks about in this documentary that's free for people to look at, that what happened in the United States, if the Russian involvement were true, dwarfs
Other
the
countries.
so-called Russian involvement. And we're looking at the wrong thing because it's still going on. What they got away with in terms of stealing that election, if people agree to that,
So it's gonna
is
happen
still
again?
going on.
Yeah.
It's still happening.
And it's going to happen
And
again.
we've been following an illusion.
Georgia, it happened in the election in Georgia.
Florida,
Absolutely.
Georgia.
Right. Martin Luther King's
his
cousin was told she couldn't vote. She was voting before that sucker of a governor was in elementary school. All right. So this
So-
has not.
So how do we prepare for
changed.
2020?
Okay.
The solution,
The solution is
2020.
okay. You got to do local votes. Like
Okay.
that's what we're missing. We keep looking at the president, which is cool to have that conversation. But long story short, he's not getting impeached. He already served his 2 years and almost 3 years. He got 2 more to go. They're not impeaching him.
Right.
Now, if you want to do a trial against him and do all of that, that's perfectly fine. But you have to look at local. We keep looking at presidential, and then we're saying, oh man, you know, if we started off with the local, the president can veto, but Congress and other people actually make up those bills and say, you know what, and they put that against Congress and say, you know what, this is what we want to vote for. And those people that you voted in or did not vote for because you did not care, those are the people that's making the bills, that's sharing the bills, that is bringing it to that president, which is that
Okay.
one person, you know?
Right.
You can have a cabinet, but it's really one person that can only veto it. But you have a bunch of people in Congress that can say, you know what, we can override that. You know, we have to look at local votes. We have to, you know, also bring our own people that actually want to run and educate our own people, but also go to the people that are running local or presidential and go to those churches, not only when they want to run, but get familiar when they're just sitting there and wanting to vote and not run, you know? So it has to be local, and we have to make sure that everyone knows their rights. Felons can vote. That wasn't printed in the
Right.
book.
That's
That was,
right.
and it was, what was it, like 150,000 people? That was felons that could vote, but they said they wasn't.
didn't know.
They didn't know that,
Yeah.
that
Didn't
they
know.
wasn't eligible to vote. You know how many votes that was wasted? You know how many votes that are wasted that?
That's the voter suppression.
Of
Right.
course.
You know.
And then you have those people actually making it accessible where you have people that are in the wheelchairs and stuff that wants to vote, but their polls are so long. So having a transportation system or even having their ballot changed to a location closer to them. Why
Right.
is it so hard to change where
So
you want
we
to
have-
vote at?
It's our job to change it then.
Yeah.
To make it easier for us. It's not that we let this happen. I mean, what's happened in the past is in the past. Let's leave it in the past and just carry on from here. We have solutions. We have to gain that community activism that we see prevalent in National Action Network. Whatever Sharpton did in the past is in the past. Because he lifts me up every Saturday. I mean, that's church for me.
It's a mayoral election next year, right?
Huh?
Is what?
A mayoral election
Yeah.
next year.
2020.
Yeah.
So we got everything coming up in 2020. So there's a happy day coming. So we look to a good effort by everyone involved. You know, there's a chance to change the world here. And it's by voting. And please answer your census questions.
Oh, yes.
Don't run in the corner and hide. We need to know who you are. We need to know that you're there. Never mind your problems. We need to know you. We need
That's
your
how our
help.
communities get
Join
funded.
in and let us know you're there. Don't hide. That's what black people do. They hide.
But a lot
They
of
say
people don't know
they
that
don't
it's
count.
anonymous, you know.
You know, it don't count. My vote don't count. Yes, we have to fight this voter suppression. We have to show up. There's hope. There's always hope. As long as you're in your last breath, there's always hope. Because the depression and feeling down and hating your brother, talk about, we don't bring the guns into the community. We don't do this to the community. Who pulls the trigger when you get mad at somebody and kill somebody? Who goes and buy the gun? I mean, that's nonsense. You're always blaming somebody else for your own flaws. And I'm tired of hearing say, the white man this, the white man. I'm blaming it all on us, because we let it happen. Because we sit back and get all dramatic and, oh, I've got it. Oh, I'm a black man and I got it. Hey, come on, I'm a king. I'm blessed by the sun.
Yeah.
I'm blessed by this glow that you give me, God.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a glow in all of us.
Change your thinking.
This is nonsense.
Right.
We're the finest things going on the planet. I mean, that's where I always felt. We come out of a crew. You had to be part of our. When we came up in the 50s, wasn't nobody better than us. Tell them,
That is absolutely correct.
Give them the definition of bad.
Well, bad was clean.
Was
Epitome
good.
of excellence.
Clean.
right.
We were dressing like this in high school.
That's right. You had to wear a tie to school.
I mean, this is us in high school. We came from the same corner.
We embrace the champions in other areas of our lives. We came up in a time of Jackie Robinson,
Yeah.
Willie Mays, Don Newcomb. We came up.
Right.
We came
You
up
had
in a
to be.
time
You had to be.
where
Roy Kemp and
not
Don.
only did they play ball, but here was a man
They
that
were
stole
gentle.
home. He stole home.
Right.
That was unheard of.
Yeah.
The innovations that black people make is extraordinary. Music, the areas that in business.
Yeah.
Byron Allen, he's a comedian.
Yeah.
He now has a multi-billion-dollar suit
corporation.
against corporation. There's a suit against Comcast
Yeah.
because they have denied him the access. The point is, we're great people. Just
The
reinforcing
point
that.
is that in our day, you strive to be the best you could be. There wasn't nothing you couldn't do. If they told me I couldn't go here, man, I got clean and walked right in. Saks Fifth Avenue, you told me I couldn't, come on. Because I was raised downtown. I wasn't afraid to go anywhere. You told me I wasn't black, I couldn't do something, I was doing exactly that. And that's what attitude we have to have again. Just to be powerful in who you are and believe that God in me loves the God in you. And stay strong and keep being black. And take care of Trump. Hit him dead in the nose.
Whoa, okay.
Power to the people. God bless.
In terms of our young people who don't believe in God, Graham, you would know the source of this, but it's out of the Bible. Ye are all gods, children of the Most High God, and you spin off of that.
Right.
You see, the potential God is in each one of us.
Amen.
And especially in our young people who are so dynamic. I'm looking at your young brother. He's confident.
you can
He
see
can
it.
look
Thank
you in
you.
the eye.
You can see
He's
it.
not afraid to speak. And I wouldn't be
that too.
surprised if I saw him in the huddle.
Yeah.
On
He's
a
there.
Monday
he's
night.
there.
He's there.
He's
He's
there.
there.
There you go.
But see, he's got love energy around him. He's got all that loving energy around him. And that's what we have to surround each other with, the love energy that cures all diseases. All diseases, love energy. And God is love. All right? Power to the people.
Power
That's
to
for the
the people.
Bronx. Never be
you.
depressed, because God is good.
All the time.
As
All
a
right.
man thinketh,
Take
so is he.
depression and put it on the back burner. Power to the people. Amen.
Amen.
Rev called me minister this week, and I got happy.
Oh, really?